During the intermission, a number have come up to me and said, or at least asked questions, that this thing keeps coming back, you know, the production designer, and what he does. It seems like there's always this little shady area, and to me it doesn't seem shady at all, and yet I think we have to hit it. In fact, one chap said, well, when do you think this idea really started? We know that the Greeks had scenery. We know that early theater, all down through the ages, there's somebody put something in back of the actors, huh? And so all of a sudden now, this is a little bit different in relation to technical achievement, to a camera, to a lens, and the fact that we put it up there on the screen. And so one way to look at it is you're building another piece of scenery. Well, it's really not that. We are not building a piece of scenery. There is something sitting there, huh? When you say production design, and I'm sure most of you know it, but otherwise in an intermission I wouldn't have three asking that question, huh? So I think we've got to clear it out. Production design. Production design is the total control of the visual aspects of the cinematic presentation. Complete, huh? And that means if you did nothing but start with that little thing on my tie here, this mic, that's production design, huh? The size of it, the shape of it, the color of it. How does it work? Texture on texture, not very good, huh? Perhaps it ought to be white on a black tie. Whatever you decide, I don't care what you want, that's production design. How that tie works with the coat, whether he has his coat on or off, whatever is happening, that's production design. Where he stands next to the mantel, is he in motion, is he not in motion? That's production design. So that you can't say, well, you know, we put the Georgian living room in back of him, let's go play golf, and the day is finished. We've done our thing. You haven't done the job. You haven't done the job if you're not right there leaning against that cameraman, because what is the good of he's shooting here when it should be here, huh? And it's unbelievable how the thing gets out of control at times. Many times I admire the boys that make the commercials, huh? With the cigarettes and with the stockings and with the various things, because at least in one way they may be very commercial, but boy, they're honest, huh? If they have to sell that cigarette, you know the cigarette's there, huh? Many times we get lost in it. We drift, we vacillate, we do all sorts of things and don't signal in on it. And that's why you're there. I think you're there from the shot one in that script, and you start going, it is how it's put together, and not in the back. We got to keep saying to ourselves, not the piece in the back. Because maybe there's nothing in the back. It's a void. The best sets I ever saw were the ones that started with nothingness, huh? And into that nothingness, something was introduced. It's the most critical condition when you start with nothing. Just always remember that, with nothing. And nothingness is something. Huh? There is no nothing. Blackness, void is something. It's space. Huh? And when you introduce the first element, you better bring in the right element. It's much easier with the Dolly Street. You clutter it up so with columns and curlicues and Victorian ornamentation that nobody knows what to look at. Huh? That's the easy one to do. The tough one is give me a black stage anytime and bring the piece on. And then you'll find, boy, you get that weak feeling in your stomach, because whether it be a column or a symbol or a shape or a person or an animal or whatever it is that you bring on that stage, you're on the spot. And your ability as a designer at that moment, I think, is really showing. Huh? So, production design, the total thing. Now, another chap came out to me and said, when do you think this thing started? If at one time there was only a set or a backing up of the actor, who did this thing? I can't say for certain. I can only say from my observation, and that is that at the time I started looking at films in the 30s and watching what happened, and you know how you do, you get to be a bug on it. You watch every film, and you begin to put them in categories. You begin to watch those dolly shots. One dolly shot works, one dolly shot doesn't work, another close-up works, wrong cut on the head, wrong positioning of the head. You get those all classified. You start to go through it, and after a while you see, hey, there's a film that works, or at least certain aspects of that film visually work, huh? Put a little note in my book, huh? Go along again. Again comes another film. There that shot works again. Now in between you see it 17 other ways by other individuals, and it doesn't work at all, or it doesn't work anywhere as near as successfully, huh? So you know, you're being forced to do your own homework, and when you do, each time that I did in those years, a name would come out, huh? And the name was always William Cameron Menzies, huh? Now, maybe it was accidental that every time Bill Menzies worked on a film, everything worked, huh? Or at least a lot of the visual aspects really did work, huh? And you can get those films out today. I'll put them up against any film that we're doing right now. The reason was he wasn't always successful, but he knew the right premise. He knew where he was going. He knew where he was trying to go, huh? And so if it was the white room, and it was all white, because he used to say to me, just cut it out of 3 pieces of paper. Come on, John, get the scissors, get the black, gray, and white. If we can't cut it out in 5 minutes between the two of us, we haven't got the shot worked out, huh? I know that's oversimplification, but a lot of truth in it, huh? It strips all the superficial. It strips all the over-ornamentation and all the curly cues that we all at times get carried away with. He'd put the white room there, and it was white. Take, for instance, an ivy. You probably have all seen it. Maybe you've seen it or not. And the white room would come on, and the black spot would appear, huh? And that black spot had meaning, and it would hypnotize you, huh? You would follow it, and you knew that the poison was in there. You knew it was going to happen, huh? It's magic, huh? When only black and white and a spot can add something to a dramatic situation, huh? When you can lead, you can be the forecaster, you can be the man who begins to set the situation up way before it happens, huh? Purely through visual means, huh? You can be the one who actually, at the moment of tragedy or romance or whatever it might be, fulfill the necessary situation with the right colors, shapes, and designs. Huh? You can then, aftermath, you can bring it back. You can bring it back traumatically until you can't stand it in that theater anymore, huh? Just from that black spot. Now, when you realize that with a simple thing, like a black spot on a white field, that you can accomplish that, these are the these are the things. And when we haven't had it put in a book yet, so I was fine. You know, I was completely entranced with this man. I went and rang his doorbell, knocked on the door. Bill came to the door, and I said, you know, I have to know you. And he said, who are you? And I said, well, I'm struggling, young guy. I'm trying to sketch, and things don't always work out right. But I see things that you do that do work. I'd like to know you. I'd like to get closer to you. I'd like to pick your brain. So he said, come on in, let's talk about it. And we started, and a friendship grew, and through the years that I knew him, I literally filled books. I couldn't find anyone else who could satisfy the appetite that I had the way he could in all areas. We started, our first volume was all on the camera itself, and that little hole that was cut. Why was it cut that shape, Bill would say. Well, you know, you sit there for a little while and you're having a drink and you think about it. Well, accidentally some mechanic probably cut a hole in a piece of metal and said that's an Academy aperture, huh? So forever after, we had an Academy aperture, huh? And then finally one man made a big milk bottle thing in Paris, and all of a sudden we started stretching it and making it different. And so Bill and I used to sit there and we used to say, well, if that's Academy and that's good for one type of thing, and this is good for something else, is this good for this? No, you know, if you're doing the flagpole shot, it isn't the same as where you're doing a horizontal composition and there's a push-pull from east to west. So then we say, you know, in the notebook we say, then that must mean that there's a right shape and a right ratio for any given scene, huh? If we had a great drama and it was all in black, we wouldn't light it all. We'd light the shapes and the pieces that were active and right for that given situation, huh? So we haven't even come to that, and that's when people come to me and say, it's all over. We've had it all the great pictures have been made, all the great designs have been made. Don't you believe it, huh? I feel we're just at the beginning. At the very beginning, just like with Greek culture and Greek art, it had to go for 200, 300, 400 years before the flute of that column and the emphasis and the positioning of those elements were refined to that degree. We're not there yet in any way until everyone in this audience, and the day will come when, say, 100 will meet who have to do with design or designing of motion pictures, and they will know the rules. If I put them to you and to myself right this minute, there'd be a little confusion here if we were questioned as to line, the use of line in every given situation in a cinematic experience. How many could you name? right off the top of your head, where line work, a linear composition, I don't care if it's black on white, white on white, gray on white, but a linear thing accomplished something, huh? When we get into form, how many times can you show me the example where the form actually performed and did these kind of functional things, played its proper part? Color. My God, we have every color. We have had everything. We've had the greatest collection of combination salads that you ever saw on the screen, all through. Once in a while, there is a piece, there is that little magic piece where someone has taken the time and the consideration to analyze it and to use color properly, not just color for its own sake or because the decorator happened to like pink, or someone else liked blue, but used it properly to create, to help the mood, to help that situation, to make that scene work. And then not only that, once you find that, you usually find it's an isolated piece. It doesn't work well with the lead in and the follow, Doesn't work at all. Wouldn't it be much nicer if once you analyze that color situation, design properly, that the whole entire flow of the composition, the picture, worked, so that until we can master, all of us, can master that kind of use of line, form, color, movement, technical achievement in every area that affects the visual and the graphic, the cinematic experience. We haven't arrived yet, Then the next thing is, you see, we have to go a step further, because let's say right now that we're all geniuses and we already know all of that, that in any dramatic situation that I could come up with, you could solve it for me. And so then you will go through the various means, because they're all at your disposal, and you'll say that it's one or the other will help you accomplish it to a higher degree, or it's a combination of any of those that will help you to accomplish it. And then, you know, we got to say, how do I get to you? You're here in the audience. I know these things, I know all these symbols, all these shapes, all these colors, and you're very important to me. I want to work on you. I have to make that situation, that scene come across. Now, you could say, well, you just put it up there, you do the thing, and it's going to work. But it doesn't stop there, you see. We have to know that you have avenues whereby I can reach you, and the first, of course, is the eye. It's a visual thing, and there we are. We're in a graphic design business of using all these shapes, symbols, and colors, and you have eyes, so when I put them there, if I've given you the right signals and the right combinations, it begins to work on you. But I also have other tools, and there again why I say it's only the beginning. You have ears, and the sound department is always going to give you some noises, but you know, we can also work through sound, because as we begin to put these sets and these pieces together, they can draw the sounds. They're like a magnet, whether it's the elevated, whether it's the squeaks and the squawks, whether it's the white bubbling thing in the Man in the White thing, and all that stuff that has gone before. We can find, if you pick them out, marvelous examples of where sound was successful because of the design, not just sound for its own sake. I think that's a marvelous thing. So now I'm working on you on the visual, and now I'm beginning to bombard you, through my visual. I have added sounds that emanate and come that can't be separated from the thing I put together, because maybe I've locked the little apartment house right under that elevator. You can't get away from it, The whole thing is shaking and it's going all through the film. So I think that we have to analyze the senses, because those are the avenues, those are the openings whereby I get to you. Say you say taste, well, you say, gosh, you know, he's supposed to be designing a Georgian interior. It's got nothing to do with taste, But it has to do with taste, because all of a sudden maybe it shouldn't be a Georgian interior for that scene, Maybe it's the smell of that bacon, Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's the slaughterhouse. I had a marvelous time in Phoenix in the slaughterhouse. We were trying to get the most disgusting thing you ever do, and if you've ever spent any time in a slaughterhouse, boy, it can really get you, from the minute they come in and they whack them in the head and they come and they rip and everything comes out, and you find that those things can affect it. The set, that placement of the set, you could play it in the front office of a slaughterhouse and not have the same thing. So all of a sudden I can start working on you on taste, on smell. I can affect all of your senses, because those are the avenues, Those are the only ways that I can get to you, and to not use them is wasteful, huh? And to always keep saying, I'm going to do it with a visual. I'm going to put the black there. I'm going to put the white there, huh? Think about it once in a while. Take your last picture and see if you've used the other senses in relation to design to help solve the situation, huh? Touch. How many of you have designed a set or an idea where touch, where the tactile thing takes over? And it's even more important whether it's Georgian or Chinese or Siamese, huh? And then you'll say, hey, God, I don't know if I've ever really done a tactile thing, huh? And so, first, the tools, which are, we've got to know our color, we've got to know our lines, our forms, and all of that bit, but we also have to apply those pieces to get to the person, to get to you, huh? I'll give you an example of touch one. We had a little picture we did in Rome called Faustus, not a very fine picture, but we had the scene between Elizabeth Taylor played the gal and Richard Burton was Dr. Faustus. And as you know, in Faustus, there's the old bit of selling the soul to the devil and cutting the head with the blood and making a deal. A deal is made 2 or 3 times, and each time the devil, of course, tricks Dr. Faustus, huh? He brings the reward, he brings the girl, and when he reaches out, of course, she doesn't materialize. She's not really there, and he feels cheated and is very disturbed by the thing. And finally, he says, well, we've got to go all the way. We've got to have this deal, and it must work. And the devil says, well, if you really do this, this, and this, I'll give you the girl. You really have her. And so this 3rd time and last time, he delivers the prize, and there she stands. And, of course, he approaches her very timidly, apprehensively. Is it going to be like before when he reaches out and his hands go right through and she's not reality, huh? So we worked this over and we thought about it and we had a big set. We had all kinds of things. And in the last analysis of going over it with the cameraman, we arrived at something, huh? It's just one little example, but I'd like you to think about it. We arrived at that out of using the tools at hand, taste, touch, all the various things, that touch was the one in this case, huh? The sense of touch. And so instead of going up and taking the woman into his arms, he went up to her very apprehensively and just... So it works when it's right. And it's one of the things I'd like to leave with tonight is that know your colors, know your design, know your line and your form, know all your trickery, huh? But keep thinking constantly how you can solve that problem and get through the avenues. Because if you can hit them in the right one, when touch is involved, or the tactile, and not through the eye, or through sound, or through taste, you're going to find some magic, new things happen that have never happened to you before. Anyway, we're supposed to get into a special effect. Talk a minute about the beginning. Well, I'm an odd kook in that, and I'm not really recommending that you do it my way, because they say that the thing I do, the people who do this should really be locked up. But how it started with me was that basically I was a musician, and so for the first 18 years of my life, I did nothing but play and compose music, and love music to this day, love it. But I was forced somewhat into the situation, and so every hour I was allowed to have 5 minutes off during this great musical pumping that I had to go through. And so I found that during the 55 minutes, I could think an image. The image might be a cube, it might be a sphere. At first they were very childish, very simple shapes, and I would recommend doing that if you're going to play the game. And then I found that I could cut the sphere in half, I could turn the pieces, and definitely record each move, each piece, during the 55 minutes. And then the minute the bloody fiddle, the strat went down, I could get over there in 5 minutes. I could draw all 57 positions, boom, 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 boom. And then I had to go next to my next 55 minutes, you see, again, like this, And so gradually it changed from just being cubes cut, holes in cubes, cylinders inserted. I could start to make much more complicated shapes. Then I found that I could begin to put the elements together. I could do square 1, and that I could do square 2 and hook it together, and square 3, and I could make vast compositions and retain those images in their proper places and then put them down. Those years of doing that, I didn't know at the time. It was a thing that was just coming out, evolving inside of me, but it gave me the opportunity to think first, to think the image, and then put the image down. So that once I began to have, that was before I had any formal training at all, so that once I started to draw, then I found that that continued to work for me. That I'm driving the automobile, whatever you're doing, you can think images, you can think colors. They say you can't dream colors. I also dream colors. That doesn't work the same for me. And so then when you get that moment, you put it down. So that it is that thing where you go to the drawing table, you get the pad and say, now what am I going to draw? What is this first concept? It has already started. It's already generating there in your mind. I hear that composers can do it, other people can do it in other areas. I've never been able to do that. Think and hear music without sound there. I think that all of us, if we train, I'm sure if you think about it, you think about those shapes and you think about the elements involved, and then you start. Then the actual answer to your question is, I always usually start small, and I make hundreds, maybe it sounds like an exaggeration, sometimes even thousands. I really do. And I pursue it in a direction first. First thinking of the elements I've just been telling you about, what is best for that given situation, and how am I going to get it across, how am I going to communicate it to you, and then I either get it and I feel it's pretty good, or I put it aside and I start a new one, and I go maybe through 3 or 4. I know certain instances for certain sets where I've done maybe 100 or more on the same thing to see, is it this, is it that, is it a multiple thing with movement, is it a locked off situation, and I bring the actors every way that I know to get the full thing. Even as years go along, you work with fine directors and cameramen, you begin to get the A, B, C, D, E, F, G of working it out. So you know how John Stahl did it, You know how Henry King did it. You know how Hathaway, with all his movement, would do it, And so you're thinking all those things, And then finally you arrive at it, You feel you've got it. You've digested it thoroughly, you've analyzed it thoroughly, and you've given the best thing you can do to it, and you take it into the director, and he says, do you really think that's the way it ought to be done, And that happens to you sometimes, because many times people in the movie group feel probably that you just went to the art department and the sketch looks like it's something you just dashed off. But I think that if you're sincere, I think you have to go through that. You've made a statement. I don't believe, though, in just thinking a thing and not doing it. I think that's very dangerous to do. I think that commitment, putting it down, is the most important in any form, model form. And again, with production design, it isn't that beautiful sketch. I don't care if you do it with sticks or clay or cut up pieces of paper or paper dolls or whatever it is, as long as you come with that concept. You arrive at the concept, And the same with locations. If you go there and move the pieces, that's still production design, But you want to get it down, because that's the part where you're ready to be crucified, so to speak. You're ready, you're exposed, you're going to be hurt, And you have to put it down, and when you put it down, you become the one that gains. It doesn't matter how many times you fail, because it's either right or it's wrong or it's halfway there, But the next time you become more sure. And each time you do it, you don't go through the 15 things anymore. The old little computer starts working faster, And you'll find that you arrive at that thing much, much faster from having put it down. I've known some boys way from the beginning who resisted the rapid thing of putting it down. I really feel it has to be recorded. You have to go on record. You have to say, at this very moment, there it is, and that's the way it worked. 15 minutes later, the next morning, you may wash it out, but put it down. So I usually think lots of little ones, and then I feel unsatisfied with that, and I find it growing, and I start larger, and then color starts coming in. Sometimes if I feel that color is the prime factor, I start with just nothing but color first. And out of the color comes the design. If I feel it's line, it comes another way. I think depending on the area that you're going into, then after I get certain things going, then I pull the team in. I feel that everybody gets into it, and we make more sketches, and we make models, and we study it out to see, is it working or is it not working? There's no line when it starts, I think, from the minute, I guess, you read that script. And those little metal images start coming, and you start to experiment. I don't think anyone just picks up the pencil and does it. I think that would be pretty strange. If you do, I think you better throw it away, because I think at that moment it means it's formula and you've done it 15 times before, huh? I think there better be a little feeling there. Something had to happen before you arrived at it, huh? Yes. Script. Usually the director on a healthy production is there before the production designer, huh? Because the correct order of players in my book is just a producer. He's a great guy, and he gets the property, or he writes it, or he steals it, but he gets the property. And then I think he begins to put the team together, and if he has any sense, the first man he gets is the director, huh? And they get their little act going, and either they write the story or they begin to cook it. And once they have something that is in certain form, a production designer, I think, is time to arrive. His time has arrived. And I think once you read it, it can't be a personal thing. It is impossible, because that director is the captain of the ship. It's his film, and the only reason we're there is with whatever visual talents, dramatic things that we can add to his picture. We're helping that man make that picture. If we're trying to make a different picture, that's disastrous, I think. You know, if you were Salvador Dali, let's say, and you went onto the film, and, well, I could name some names, but I won't. You're doing a certain kind of picture, and he would do a Dali treatment for the picture that didn't demand a Dali treatment. I think this is a terrible thing, right? I think that we have to be flexible enough, and that's why at times I think it's better to work with the sticks, not always with the sketches, sometimes with the models, because you might have to arrive at it in a different way. Sometimes a particular style might be the worst thing for the picture. A personal style is inflicted. Your personal style is inflicted on that product. I think much better, whatever talent you have bent it, you have made it work to help you, the director, come off with the picture that you need. Yep. Anybody else? All right, we go into special effects a little bit. I mentioned earlier that I felt that without a certain knowledge and setting the special effects thing in, it can become disastrous for a designer. I felt that because early in my career, I had a good dose of old-fashioned special effects, and it leaves you with something. Once you know all the tricks and know how to put things together, and naturally there's shortcuts. There's many, many shortcuts. That doesn't always mean they can be used. We have a great gamut of directors who will have nothing to do with them, even at this age. In this age, when we're in it, we're surrounded by it at every turn. Won't have it. Would rather still have you build the New York street and go ahead and let him have that freedom, that laxity, where he can shoot when and where and how he wants to shoot it. So I think that we all have to dig into it more and more. The books are very weak again. We're going to come back to this book thing in a minute. The departments that have sprung up in the last 10, 15 years have taken on great stature and importance, self-importance, way out of proportion, I feel, to what they should, because I feel, first of all, someone has to design the concept. It can come from a number of different areas, but someone has to do it. And there's always production design, even if there isn't a production designer there. There is always the art direction angle that has to be fulfilled. And I see all these pictures, no art director. That doesn't mean anything. It's still being done. Staying up at night, he's doing part of it, or the director is really a frustrated art director, or somebody is doing it in some degree of style or fashion. Not always very successful, but it happens. So it's there, and as long as it's there, we, the ones that are most seriously interested in it, I feel should be doing it. Now, on this special effects thing, the thing that happens today that I feel is completely out of line is you get a script. I'll give you a good example. You get the script, you read it, and you recognize immediately that there's no way to produce the film in normal building, realistic manner, of building units, that it's, let's say, the world of tomorrow in all its aspects, and so it doesn't exist. We can't go to location. If we started to build it, the budget would never permit to build, and so immediately we say, well, that's the special effects area. Now, if you're in a major studio and they have a great department, like they used to have years ago, they move in on you at that time, and you have to hold your own with the design concept and how those things are worked out. Now that we don't have departmental things anymore, the outside special effects, and we can name, you probably know all of them, there's 8 or 10 in town, and they're quite well equipped to do certain things. They have this importance, and so you have to be teamed up with one or more. Sometimes one after the other. It's pretty sad. You go through and you can't get the shots. And the opposition is always there because they take the attitude that perhaps the art director, perhaps the production designer doesn't really know how to do it, and that they know a better way. And they take over and begin to hire sketch artists in the evening, and a second art department begins to build. I think that's a very sad state. If you want to know, we're at that state right now, and the only way that's going to be corrected is for the designers who work on pictures that fall in that area to take a firm stand. First of all, to do a fine concept, and believe me, we all know there isn't anything that can't be done. There isn't anything that can't be done that can be put on a piece of paper, that can be made into a model or into a concept. So you have to get that concept, and then you have to dig in. You have to bring these people in, and you have to talk to them, and you have to control it. If you can't control it, then you really leave the picture, because it'll be disastrous. And we've had 3 or 4 very large productions in the last 3 years where the special effects people have tried that kind of a takeover, and it has been very bad. The production designer has changed a number of times in some cases, and even the special effects man has changed. So I think the sooner we get to that point. Now, I don't know if you ask me, how do we do it? The first thing is knowledge. I think knowing the shots, knowing the means and the method to accomplish them so that we're talking the same language. Here we are back to communication again. And unless you can talk that language, they're going to talk you down. They're going to make the art director as an old-fashioned chap who only knows how to do a simple matte shot. He doesn't know about scanners. He doesn't know about tracking devices. He doesn't know anything. Only the boys who sit in that locked-up room back there, off somewhere on the top of the hill, they know how to do all those magic things. And so we really should do the book. We've got to open it up. We've got to get it so that it's, I think, a common language, that we all know the same things. Not that only a few, like the priests of ancient Egypt, were back there with their secrets. We don't want that anymore. And so until you can all mention them and know them, and believe me, there isn't that much there in back of the black doors. It's talked up. It's talked up a lot. I could tell you, I think, a couple of very comical stories of some of these things and their mysteries. You see, I know that because I worked in back of the black doors for a number of years at Universal. After Mr. Lawson left, I kept that going. And I had the same black doors, and I wouldn't let anyone go back in there. And I built all the tubes and all the machines and all the gimmicks that Mr. Whitlock now has at Universal now. And he still has his back room, is still locked up. And just think, when you think from Systrom in 1907, who had the black doors, and he locked them, and then who was it next? I think there was a chap in between before Lawson, and Lawson locked the black doors, and then I had them, and now Whitlock has them. I think it's time really somebody opens the doors and shows you what's back there. All there is a few pipes back there, and a few gears. Really, there's a few gears and a few little things that they do. And some of them are pretty tricky, pretty nice. I can give you the story of one machine, and you'll see the strangeness of how this mystery story works. When I first went into the black room, Systrom, who was a very serious man in special effects in those early years, I would guess somewhere in 1907, about to 1921, and Cosgrove came next after him. I'd forgotten the other man's name. And in the back room on the black wall, he had 23 patents. He had all the basic patents that we have used in the past and that we're using today. Now, that was a pretty smart chap, who in those early years had the patents for all of them locked on the wall there. And so I felt myself very fortunate to get into the black room. I had to work, by the way, 3 years in the department before they'd even open the door and I was in the department and still I couldn't get in back of the black door. Anyway, there they were, and boy, me with my little photographic ability, those images just went right down, bing, 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 and I had them all drawn in DeCuir's notebook before you could even shake a stick. analyzed each one. They were magic. They were a simple match shot, which later Fred Serson, and even I believe in our document here, took a ladder and a bucket out of a ballroom and claimed the first one. But I think if you check the dates, you find the other one is earlier date. But anyway, not only a simple match shot, a simple glass shot, panning shot, hanging miniatures, all the things that through the 20s, through the 30s, the 40s, all these things were performed. But also on this wall, he went beyond. He had control, electronic control devices. He had a front projection device. He had all the things that we have and more than we have right this very minute in Hollywood. I was fascinated by it, and I thought, that's magic. We didn't have much time to do them because in those years we did mainly straight mats and straight glasses. Fade out. I left that department in the war years, and that was the Second War, and after the war became an art director and made use of many of those things. They were handy things, but you know, many times we use them only as a last resort. You know, when you can't build the top on the castle, you paint it on or you hang the miniature. That's a very insipid sort of weak way of approaching it. The special effects is a magic area where the total creative thing can be controlled and designed, not where you put the top, a little thing on the top of the castle. So staying with just one machine for the moment so you see how it works. Somewhere in the middle 50s, the boys at RKO put a machine together, very much like Mr. System's machine, and that was that it had a front projector and a camera and a prism with a degree of reflectivity and a beaded piece of screen. At that time, I was on the board at the Academy for Technical Achievement, and we reviewed it. It was a very feeble attempt. We brought it in one night in the old place, and it was soft on the edges and sharp in the middle. The minute you put another lens on it, it reversed, and it was vice versa. So I think there was some award given to the chaps that worked on it, but nothing happened because it wasn't a real fine working piece of machinery. But the principle was a good principle. The principle was that you could take and create something, whether it be paint, miniature, model, anything here, in still form or in live film, and it could be pumped into the photographing position. That was a breakthrough. That was the beginning, and Mr. System was the man. The feeble attempt didn't work. It went out, and then by a fluke of fate, not that I'm a mechanical or an inventor of photographic equipment, but sometimes, you know, you're going along on a film and you want to accomplish something, and you're forced into the corner. You're forced there where you have to do something. You have to generate some steam. You have to get the right people together, and because of that, things happen. I happened to have just finished Cleopatra, and I went over to help Mr. Bronson do finish off the fall of the Roman Empire. Colasanti and Moore were ill. And while I was there, I was sucked into doing an ill-fated thing with Mr. Hathaway, a circus picture, and we needed some mats and some tricks on it. And when you're in foreign countries, they have none of the simple, even the early day things that we work with. There is no trick department. There are no mats, no glasses, and so you do everything live. Everything is in the camera. If you don't do it right there when you shoot it, you don't get it. So we were there, and we had a few trick shots that I needed to perform. And so I was going to bring some people from Hollywood, and the production office didn't like it. Instead, I brought a wonderful man from England. His name was Wally Vevers, and he came down to Madrid and to perform these few simple shots we had to do. Anyway, while we were there, to make a long story short again, I had a concept we had developed on the Divine Comedy. And in that scheme of things, as you know, there's the bit of going down below and going through another world and having a flotation scene where we're actors and it's a very fluid thing, not locked to the ground surface. So Wally and I talked about it, and we analyzed again all the machines and everything that could happen. The year was 1963 and a half, and we analyzed it and we said, you know, System was right with his first machine, and the boys at United Artists were right. It didn't develop properly, but we give it another whirl. And so we thought it'd be very simple, and we'd get a few gears and a few old projectors and things, we'd put a prism in it, and everything would work. Believe me, it wasn't that simple. I went to Elizabeth Taylor, and she helped me by giving me 2 cameras and 3 projectors of 63 and a half. Marvelous piece. stealing all of it, stealing from System, stealing from the boys at RKO. And it not only had what they had, which was a front projector in 70 millimeter locked into a prism with a beaded thing, it meant that we could pump in, and a number of times, and on a playback, we put it in a great nodal mount. I guess we all know nodal mounts, huh? Shake your head if you don't know nodal mounts. The old one used to be in a saddle where both positioned. The optical center of the lens is on the pivot point. When you're on the pivot point, things on different planes don't move. They stay rigid, they hold. With our neck, it doesn't work because our eye isn't on the pivot point, you see? So in the old mat trick departments, one of the secrets, we used to have the big old horseshoe. We used to joke about it, old fishbone, and the camera was locked in that nodal point position. We took, because we wanted to do a precision, we got a great, the turret out of an English bomber, the gun, the rear turret, which is all geared, and that camera was mounted in that double geared unit, and so once again, the lens was on the nodal mount, you see? It gives it fluidity, and yet images on different planes hold their relative position. They don't move. So we put that. Then also earlier MGM had made a tracking device, two of them. One had been made on a record and one had been made on a tape. And we had a new method we locked into the tape system whereby that unit holding this great nodal mount with this camera projector from a front position could do a tracking thing, and could be played on the computer. So it meant that I could start here on Bill on a close-up, and I could float through the audience, come back here and go right into the camera. It means I could cut, go back to that exact position, press the button on the computer, and the tracking device would take over, and that camera would repeat its move. You say, what's so great about that? You're shooting the same thing. Well, the thing is that when a camera can repeat a motion, in motion, with the same light, with moving objects in it, it gives you the opportunity to change and to add. You can add, you can put things in. It means 16 times I can start on Bill's eye and come across here, and every time do something different, an additive thing. I can have the spaceship come through and put people in the windows that are not there. I can do anything. So it is a magic machine when you can do. Not the locked-off versions we have here, like behind the black room, which are locked off at the moment. Correct me if I'm wrong. We've all hoped to bring and make another machine. It hasn't been made yet. Hansard is trying. Trumbull has tried. Dykstra has his machine. They've done locked-off, solid shots, not moving shots put in. Or they've done panning head movement. This is different. If you pan from a nodal position, it's different than when you do a free flight. Anyway, we made the machine. The machine got us into terrible trouble, difficulty. We thought it would take us a couple months. It took us almost 18 months to make the machine. We ran into financial difficulties again. I thought it would cost $50,000. When we got to 150, we all got nervous a little bit. And then I ran around London trying to find somebody to give us a few bucks. And we were lucky that at that time, Broccoli and Salzman had just made a lot of money with James Bond. And so we presented the idea to him, and it was a marvelous thing. We told him the principles, Wally and myself, how this machine was going to work and what it could do. And he sat right down and he wrote us a check for $200,000, I thought pretty nice. A man that had that kind of vision, He said that he just liked to use the machine once in a while if it ever worked after we got it. And so we went ahead and we finished that first machine with all sets of lenses. The lenses we found had to be matched, all on a computer grind, all the rings. Before that time, always a 40 was a 40. But now we found that a 40 wasn't a 40 inside of a 40, That the lens and the thickness in those lines changed, We found all sorts of technical things that weren't known before. But with the development of technology, we were far ahead of the boys that had tried in '55. This was 63 and a half, remember. And so when we went to Palo Alto, now they have a firing device on those prisms. And that silvering, you can have exact precision, 30% reflectivity, 40%. 42%. You can have anything you want. Before they used to somebody sit there with them and daub it on, Now it was being fired through an electronic device, Absolute perfection, The beaded material improved, We fixed the lenses. Everything was souped up until finally one day came and there was the machine, The machine that could take and put the actor anywhere. Now, I felt that that was a breakthrough. That was the beginning of the new way, Other followers came along, and we'll talk about them for a minute also, because it meant that we could take Bill sitting in that chair and we could put him anywhere. We really literally didn't have to build the set. Not that I'm trying to get out building the set, but it meant we could paint the set. It meant that instead of painting the top on the castle it all could be painted if you wanted it painted, huh? And it could be put right in. You see, up to that date with the blues and with the sodiums, with all the traveling mats and all the devices, we had big problems. The hair always gave us trouble. The smoke was impossible. If there was lace, it didn't work, huh? The old matting systems just didn't work. And now here was a new one that worked in all those areas. Bill could be smoking. He could have his hair blowing. Huh? The girl next to him could have her lace scarf. She could dance. And every little minute hole in that lace would have the picture printed through it. So we felt we had it. We were going to do the thing. We wanted $21 million. Mr. Zanuck was trying to help me get it. It came at a bad time. After Cleopatra, there was no $21 million. And we were delayed with that production. In the meantime, Stanley Kubrick came to London and heard about our machine and said, I think that's pretty good, and called me up and said, we heard about your machine, John. Is it possible to use it? And I went up to London. We talked about it. Anyway, that machine was used on 2001. And to date, some of the shots in that film, I think, are still our landmark shots. They're shots where people are standing in sets that don't exist. Objects are flying through space in free motion, where people are put into the flying objects. And that is as difficult a shot as you can ever do. To lock it off and put them in is one thing, but to move, and while you're in motion, put the object in that doesn't exist and put the people in it, that means playback. That means repeat motion. That means you might have to do it 15 or 20 times before all the pieces, so that the guns fire at the right time, for the flash, for the crash, whatever happens. Huh? So that was the beginning of the new day. Huh? And we had quite a team working with us on 2001. I wasn't the designer, but I ran in and out many times. I was curious because my baby, that machine with Wally, our machine was working. We had a young man come and work on our crew. His name was Doug Trumbull. Huh? He worked with us. He later came back and started to build his own machines in his own shop, which he has here now. As you know, Dykstra, where John worked with him, and the mushrooms started to grow. Huh? This thing has come up, and so now there are still more black rooms locked all over town, and we, the art directors, the production designers, still have to work with it. Huh? I don't really have all the answers for you in that area, except all I can suggest is a fine concept, a strong concept, and that each time you come with the producer and the thing is presented, because it will be presented to any or all of you, and that is, why have the art director, why have the production designer, if there's someone in back of the black room who can create it all? If I really believed they could, I would say, well, then maybe we ought to just hand it over, give the baton to them. But I know they can't. Most of the time, they're very technical-minded individuals, huh? Who know exposures, who know gears and wheels and nuts and bolts, and are very good at it, very sharp at it. But you'll find that secretly they still have to resort to someone who has the things that we're talking about, the artistic input, huh? The visual input, the creating of a concept and a design. So that area we have to watch for. It's critical. We're all going to be faced with it. And get a good concept and then dig in with your producer. And by analyzing each shot and breaking it down, you say, well, that one is a certain kind of a shot, and let them work that out. But you still have to hold the reins, I believe. Yeah, all right, we're going to make it fast. I know it's getting late. I'd like to really leave you with a thought that I mentioned at the beginning. And that is, I'd like to enlist your help and your support. I've talked to Gene Allen. We've also mentioned it to the Academy. And that is, there is some way that we could initiate a program. I would hope that someday we could create a book, a volume on art direction, production design, in all aspects. And I don't mean to do a book about Harry Horner, or a book about John DeCuir, or a book about any individual. I think those that's the wrong direction. I think that it would have to be broken down. There'd have to be a group first who would define and lay an armature of achievement in each of the areas, in each shot, in each type of shot, the things we talked of, line, form, color, in the senses of how to get through, who has succeeded, whether it's a little film made in 21 and there was one little thing in a terribly, terribly ineffective film, that example should be recorded, that everyone else in the Academy and in the society and in the cameraman, we cover the industry, come forward and bring forth the little old clip the sketch, the piece, and we digest it thoroughly until it has been crystallized. There it is. It's recorded, put in the book. Go to the next one. Now, to do that, we need a room. We need the cooperation, I think, of everyone who works in this area, in this part of film designing. And one by one, we would record those elements, those points of achievement. And I think that would make a marvelous book, because then as the young ones come along, as any of us, I'd like to see that book myself, because, you know, we all concentrate on certain areas, we miss other areas. And to have that definitive kind of work would be a great achievement, because I think that we're at the beginning. I think really we're at the beginning. And I think once you see that book and that input, you would know even more than we know right now, that we're at the beginning. And there's going to be whole chapters, I think, under headings that are very, very weak, very little support, because we haven't done a lot to really develop them fully. So that's the thought I want to leave you with. I hope as the time goes along, you're going to hear some announcements, you'll hear some things. I think these 7 coming together, it's a beginning. I think we're just tickling it in a very, I think, disorganized fashion, because to get up here and to wave your arms and tell funny stories or to hit and miss it isn't really the way. But I think it's a nice thing that we could get together and have a little time. But if we could do it in an organized fashion, to record it, then we'd be taking, I think, the first step. So anyway, I want to thank you for being with me tonight.